Sure.
We're going to talk about Django or Aurra. Was that on there?
Yeah, it was.
Hey everyone. Seth and I are here again to talk about another deck. This is the Aurra Unchained deck on as Star Wars DB or Star Wars Destiny DB or whatever. I learned recently that this deck has been retired due to meta shifts, but it's kind of cool anyway, and it works really well, so we're going to still review it. So let's go over the characters first. That's the promo, Django, just in case you're wondering. So it's a pretty cool start. So I've seen a few of the other decks variations here too, where you're talking about Aurra. Aurra is just a solid card. Like, her die sides are really good.
Yeah, lots of damage, and her ability alone just to pump the damage is just like incredible.
And she'll grab you 2 resources by discarding her cards. So like she makes any card into like a logistics basically, so you can get extra money. And those sides, the sides on Django and Aurra resource sides are really good for other cards in the deck like bait and switch and things like that. So Aura's really here Django's really here to just kind of go when your opponent goes and have dice ready for your turn. So that way, if you didn't resolve all of Aura's dice for some reason, or you're using fast hands like you should be, you'll have a dice left over. Django activates when your opponent does, and you can just resolve all your range damage right in the face.
From what I've seen, he's basically just like a free activation, so you can keep all your activations like combo with Aurra Sing and whatnot. So
yeah, and so this is the most recent battlefield we have in here. It was going through a lot of changes, but I think I like where it landed on Separatist base, because this one is a really solid, because you're usually going to be finishing your turn before your opponent almost all the time, and the one problem this deck can run into is being blocked by shields. So
yeah, and it doesn't really run too many shields, I've noticed, so you don't really care if you're being dealt unblockable damage. It's basically just damage to you. So
yeah, there are some stuff in here, and like armor plating won't work with like vibroblades, which sucks, but personal shield is really your big one, and that's like kind of the only card that generates shields, but it does generate quite a bit of shields. So let's go over the upgrades. We have armor plating. So armor plating is there to save Aurra's life, because you want her to stay around as long as possible, so you can get like 4 or 5 turns of her resolving dice.
Yeah, she's a bit of a lightning rod.
And then as soon as your opponent stops attacking Aurra because it's hard, then you already are winning. Because if Django's getting hit, you don't really care. Like, Django's there to be the other guy. Of course, we have a yellow deck, so we're putting fast hands in it. The nice opening move is you put fast hands or 2 on Aurra and resolve her dice on your first action in the turn. So you deal 6 damage before anything else. And so that can be really cool, especially when you could just deal 6 damage and then you could claim to do a 7th and then let your opponent go. And as long as Aurra doesn't die, you can try to do it again next turn. So you got the infamous Holdout Blaster. That card can really go on either, I think.
Yeah. Really, I think the thing about it is the ambush part, which is just crazy good. This deck has a lot of ambush, free action kind of stuff. That only helps, I would say, and the fact that it has redeploy. Like, if you do put it on Aurra and she does die, you still have Django to maybe like scrap something together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm frequently often in that scenario when we've played is like the only character you have left is Django, and he's got like 2 hold-up blasters and a jetpack, and Django doesn't hit very hard. So you're just really hoping for his stuff to hit hard. And yeah, the redeploy there is really gross. So if you haven't really played a lot of redeploy, which you should be doing because it's really good, you don't really have to worry. And you can actually play redeploy cards on cards that you know are going to die and get some extra benefit out of the upgrade spread, right?
Yeah.
So we got Jetpack. Jetpack is scary in this deck.
Yeah. And it's just such a cheap upgrade in general for the damage sides that it adds. I think it's an incredible card.
Yeah. The +2 and +3 on Aurra is disgusting, because that's 6 damage off of 1 die in 1 turn if you don't do fast hands resolution, right?
Yeah.
But its special side is really cool, because what it will do is, since it says "and," you don't have to do one part to do the other. So keep that in mind, is that it says remove die showing melee damage, which is great against like a Finn deck or a Nines deck or like Anakin or Vader or anything like that. And then give attached character a shield. So you don't have to remove the die to give the shield. You just remove it and do them both.
Yeah.
Same thing with this On the Hunt. So On the Hunt's kind of a different card too. It's nice because of it's kind of upgrade-based removal.
Yeah. And this one's also really cheap, and it has 2 special sides, so your chances of getting the special ability to kind of remove the shields and whatnot is just
And if you have a resource, then you get to remove the upgrade a character die, which is sweet. And so I believe you can remove 0 shield and then spend a resource to do it, because that's how I've been playing it. So
yeah, because it says remove all shields. I don't think they even need to necessarily have the shields. So.
And feel free to comment if we're wrong, but that's how we've been playing it. So. But yeah, so like these are pretty solid on either character. I think most of the time you're probably putting this on Aurra more often and this on Django more often. It's pretty nice to be able to activate Django and remove a die if you roll the special sides. This card is in here exclusively almost for Aurra saying to not die as quickly. Personal Shield. So the one thing I did notice playing against a few of the decks was that Personal Shield sucks against a melee deck.
Yep.
Its shields are great, don't get me wrong, but most of the time when you're running melee, you have that beautiful little vibroblade sitting there.
Yep.
And that means that all of your stuff is for naught. And that can be really brutal. So this deck does have a lot of trouble against Vibroblade decks, but that's hopefully why On the Hunt and a lot of the other cards that are in the event section of this deck
like
are going to
Jetpack as well.
Yep, Jetpack as well. So that's kind of the counter, is to like play around that stuff with these like upgrades that you have, and most of them are cheap. I mean, they all do get hit by Imperial Inspection, which is really annoying. So. Yeah, the deck is harder to play around Imperial Inspection, but that's why some of the events are in there too, because we have a Sabotages in here, so you'll see that.
And even then, there's so much damage that's being put out that usually you can fight through an Imperial Inspection just through Aura's dice alone, I feel like.
Yeah. The final, I guess we'll show this kind of in the middle, but our only support in the deck is going to be Infamous, and that's purely because there's so many yellow cards in this deck that you get ambush after ambush action. So
basically, like everything but Holdout Blaster, I'm pretty sure. Maybe.
Yeah, no, because we there used to be Doubts and there used to be some other cards in here, but they're now replaced because this is a slight variation off of Aurra Unchained.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything can trigger off Infamous, and that can be cool.
Oh yeah.
So let's and then we're gonna go through the events suite real quick. So we'll link to this as we always do. But the first one we got is Armed to the Teeth. So you'll notice that some of the events inside of this events section are going to be ones that are like take away something to deal a bunch of damage, because that's how you finish someone off after you deal 6 damage with Aurra. Is at the end of the game you got one character left. You roll. You don't care what you roll. You Armed to the Teeth for 6 or maybe 5 damage depending on the dice. Yeah. That's a lot.
And it's cool when you can like have like 2 equipment on Aurra, resolve like 8 damage on Aurra, and then discard 2 just to deal 2 more damage, finish someone off.
The nice part about this too is it doesn't care what color the upgrade is. It just wants it to be from a yellow character, which means that both of your characters can do it. You play 1 Armed to the Teeth, and you could discard 6 upgrades to deal 6 damage.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Bait and Switch was made for this deck.
Yeah.
It's like. Yeah, because you have 2 Aurra dice in this deck and 1 Django, I guess, in case we hadn't talked about that. That's how the dice the points spread out. But Django's got 2 sides, right? And you're getting 2 resource sides from Aurra. So this card can be really tricky because unless your opponent's thinking about it and they're not paying attention, or even when there are, you can still get an uninteractable set of damage out there.
Yeah. And it is a free event with Ambush, which in my opinion, anything that's free with Ambush is definitely worth being looked at. Least.
Unfortunately, as far as I understand it, you can't give ambush to ambush cards, so that's not the biggest deal in the world, but just keep that in mind. Of course, we have Electroshock because we're playing a single yellow character. Falls on its face in some scenarios when you're talking about like Vader or Palp or anything like that, but
even then, like, you can usually hit some of their like special dice, like on upgrades and whatnot, and that can be pretty huge too, I would say.
And this is great. Even and then when you can remove Palpatine's dice, this is a perfect way to do it.
Yep.
This is a great. I actually remember, probably a ton of people already know this, but Electroshock's a really good way to remove special sides.
Yeah. Because
it's like they're zeros. So our second card that deals a bunch of damage from doing something with the dice or the upgrades is Fight Dirty. So this one does cost 1, but you get to do a damage per die rolled, per yellow die in your pool that you remove. So, I mean, in the end, you could have a bunch. You could have stuff from, your jetpacks, your On the Hunts, you got personal shields. And so you could be removing a bunch of dice and then immediately hit the next turn with. So even if you could Fight Dirty Infamous it to ambush it, then play an Armed to the Teeth and do like 12 damage in turn or something like that. Probably more if you had that many upgrades. But so that's kind of the way this deck works, is it explodes like a shotgun and you kill somebody and it's like, oh my god, I have 1 turn left to play. I threw this in instead of the backup muscle that was in the deck, the version that this was based on. Mostly because of the unblockable.
Yeah. kind of your own like ranged vibro knife.
Yeah, and it's really nice because there's like Django has his one melee side and On the Hunt has one, but getting through shields is something that you like. It's all about speed.
Yeah.
And if somebody's just constantly putting shields on, like a Palpatine's always getting like 1 or 2 shields a turn, stuff like that is really annoying. So when you can just burn through it, or if you need to finish it off with like a little bit of damage, the go for the kills are really nice. And again, they're free. So He Doesn't Like You, one of my favorite cards for yellow.
Yeah, just a very like good defensive card. A lot of times if you're just like rolling a blank or whatever, you're just like, okay, I'll use this, remove your best die, like your 3-4 damage side.
Works really good with a Django because you can activate and then be like, he doesn't like you, like a Palpatine die or something like that, right? This card is purely for meta control. Sabotaging Imperial Inspection is probably what you do most of the time, or Planetary Uprising, I guess.
Yeah.
So the nice part about Sabotage in the current meta is that it really do cost you just 1 resource to play most of the time. That's really good.
Oh yeah.
Because you really don't want to have to discard a bunch of cards, but hitting 1 or 2 for Planetary Uprising is not. Is it 1 Planetary Uprising?
I think it's 2.
Okay, so 2 for Planetary Uprising is still not the worst thing ever, but 0 for Imperial Inspection, not messing with you is really good. I would hate to have to play Sabotage against an ATSC though. I've never seen a deck with one, but that would suck.
Yeah.
And then finally, this is the one I replaced Doubt with this. So I think Unpredictable was one of those cards that I had talked to one of our other players, Steve, about, the guy who did the Palpatine review. I was really debating between whether I like Doubt or Unpredictable more.
I think this one fits the deck a little better just since it has the ambush. It's not quite as disruptive as Doubt is, I would say, just since it forces them to either resolve it or remove it. But you can use it on your own dice, so you can fix your dice if you're rolling like blanks or disrupt sides and you're just trying to look for the damage. And just being able to disrupt your opponent's dice can be pretty huge, especially with ambush.
Yeah, I really like the way that it works for and again. It can work for you both ways. Like I put that in thinking, okay, I'm going to do a reroll for an Aurra die and do 3 to 6 damage or something like that, right? That's kind of why I was thinking about it. And it can be funny to watch someone who has like rolls a blank on like a 3 damage side or something. And you're like, oh, that sucks for you. So I'll lay them all out here in a second. We can see, because I want to talk about like stuff that I've hit. That like we can talk about how this deck interacted with your Jabba Krennic deck, which is really brutal. Because it was an older build of the deck, but what kept happening was that deck's pure control, pure unadulterated control.
Yeah. And
the problem that you'll run into is that you'll spend money every turn to roll stuff out or to put stuff out, and then you'll immediately get it bounced to your hand. So you have to play quite different, because you almost have to play a little slower with that, but you still have to keep your speed high. But it's hard, because anytime you can't keep your dice on the board, it was a bad game. And
dice and upgrades.
Yeah, and that game was a mistake too, because originally the deck had carbon freezing chamber in it, and it kept backfiring because you'd do it 1 or 2 turns in a row, and then you get your Django die, and then now you have a character die missing. And you're like, okay, well, Django can roll a holdout blaster and a jetpack, and maybe like I think back in the day there was an ascension gun in here. And you're like, that's cool, it's like 2 or 4 damage, but having Django not on the board is annoying, and getting Aurra's die locked out, which is like what you probably would do most of the time, is like slows it down too much.
And then in my control deck, I was also running the prized possessions, so just comboing that with the carbon freezing chamber,
it was annoying.
Yeah.
And so dice control can be really bad against this deck. So if someone's actually, able to control or prize possession is really, I don't think that card's played enough. I mean,
like maybe in the like choke control strategies, but not very much elsewhere, I would say.
And so that's kind of why the sabotage comes in here. I think I was thinking something like disarm would be cool, because even though you couldn't hit prize possession with it, you might be able to do something with another card like I guess you couldn't hit blackmail. You could hit blackmail, okay. Yeah. Blackmail or something like that would be good to get off the board. Krennic has a lot of upgrades that are really annoying too. Blackmail and Krennic is really frustrating. And the sabotages really are there for dealing with annoying supports. So.
You can deal with C-3PO too, so that can be pretty huge.
Yeah, C-3PO can be frustrating. Really good things that happen are, you know, you get Aurra, and I like to put 2 fast hands on Aurra if I can.
Yeah.
Because having her roll out and resolve both of her dice at once is like the same thing as like Ray stacking 5 actions in a row or force speeding yourself twice or something like that. I mean, it's a lot of value.
And like with Aurra, you don't really need to upgrade her much for her to do a lot of damage, just since her ability just allows her to pretty much be unmatched when it comes to range damage.
Yeah, I mean, if you have cards in your hand, she's got a 2-side, a 3-side, and a 3-side, and there's no other card that there's no other character in the game that has damage like that. A 50% chance of rolling damage every die is really high.
Yep.
I mean, especially since it's consistent range damage, and even Django, he has a 50% chance of roll damage. That's true, but he only has 1 2-side, and he can't increase it further. So you're looking at things like that Luminara deck where you're like, how can I increase die sides? You're like always trying to put uniques in, and you gotta like I would even play almost, if they could play together, Luminara with Aurra, because doing like the 2 damage to be 4 and 5 damage a die side and 50% of the die would be really cool. But I think your best opening hand is always going to be at least one of those guys.
Yeah.
I really like Jetpack or Holdout Blaster, so like one of those two is probably good. Just because Holdout Blaster lets you do stuff again. Actually, I think instead of Holdout Blaster, we probably want Personal Shield, just because getting that on Aurra turn 1 is really good, because you need to keep her alive. Usually like an Infamous, which could be really cool, because that means you can start getting your ambushy actions.
Yeah.
What do you think?
You probably need a little defensive stuff. Personal Shield can probably do it for you, but I kind of like the idea of having like an Electroshock
or he doesn't like you or something.
Yeah,
Which
or
one?
Unpredictable.
Okay, let's do. I think he doesn't like you's got a lot of power because it's free, and so with how we're trying to play first turn, you might get a resource, but yeah. And then, I mean, Armor Plating is really good, but I also feel like getting another control card, so maybe maybe an Unpredictable or an Electroshock's probably, or actually maybe a Bait and Switch could be cool.
A lot of times, some of these cards are probably just going to be pitched to Aurra Sing on turn 1 anyways.
Yeah, so like, you got to keep that in mind too. You're playing almost like with 1 copy of every card in your deck, kind of, because you're okay throwing that stuff away.
Yeah.
I really think you should mull out cards like Armed to the Teeth, and cards like where is it? Go for the Kill probably doesn't need to be on turn 1. This one too, Fight Dirty. You don't really need that. Like, these are the 6 cards that you probably could like hold off on, right?
I would probably consider those more like finisher, like execute style cards, where you only really want to see them towards the end of the game.
Definitely. You pretty much. I always mull those out, and I always freaking get them back too. But if you can get a fast hands, you're already in a good spot. That's one of the main problems with this deck, though, is the lack of consistency. So since it relies on 2 cards out of a 30-card deck, it can be, and I don't mean 2 cards, I mean like literally you need to have one of these out or the deck's too slow. It's really hard to keep it consistent in a single play games. But in a match, you'd probably be okay because you can mull to a fast hands. But single play pre-cut tournaments are not really what you want to do. Somebody didn't like our video, apparently. But yeah, so if you guys have any questions or anything, any other comments, Seth?
I mean, I think we have most of it covered. I think it's an awesome deck. This is like the only like mono yellow aggro deck that I've seen that I've just been like completely blown away with. I just love how it stacks all the actions, and it just feels like you're doing very unfair things.
Yeah, because you're almost done so quick every turn.
Yeah.
I think when I post the deck list or the posted deck list, I was saying you probably want to finish between like 4, maybe 3 to 6 actions, so you don't really want to go further than that, because if you do, you're running into problems where you can't claim, you're going to start taking damage, you haven't gone fast enough, or you're not in the right spot. So generally you can say between that many actions is what your turn is. So what else was I going to say? So some people have been running this, instead of putting Django in, putting like another card in that's 12 at 1 die. So I think someone in our most recent Store Champ was doing Asajj and Aurra, because they wanted to put in Force Illusion instead of armor plating, or maybe they put it in addition to armor plating. But it's kind of a cool twist because you get access to some of those Force cards, and I don't know if you can run No Mercy in it, but that would be really interesting too. Yeah. I don't know if it would stack very well with Aurra, but there's some pretty cool stuff you can do with blue that might make this deck a little better. But the yellow definitely makes it as fast as it's ever going to get. So
The Asajj Ventress I kind of like too, just being able to disrupt your opponent, like re-rolling their dice and whatnot, making them have to pay a little extra for it.
Especially with cards like Unpredictable and things like that, where you're trying to control what they have. I thought that was the most annoying part about playing that deck, is it's still got the Aurra Sing speed, but it has the the blue control that Asajj like forces upon your opponent, where at some point in that, when you're playing that Asajj deck, you're just like, gosh darn it, I have to discard 2 cards to do this. Or you try to play all your cards, and so you only have to discard 1 to reroll, but then it's too late because everything's already finished, and I don't know. I've never got to play this against like Pomaz. I don't know how it would go. I think that's probably why the deck got retired, is because it's just slower than Pomaz, and you have the new meta with things like 9s dropping rocket launchers on you twice in a turn, which is really rough. So I don't know. It's the most important part is about keeping Aurra alive. So yeah, well, thanks for watching, everybody. We appreciate when you guys like and comment this stuff. So make sure you subscribe and do all that kind of helpful things so we can keep doing these videos. Come down to our shop and play Destiny with us sometimes. We have lots of people come down a lot, and our Facebook groups are there to let you know when people are here. Usually we have people on Tuesdays and Saturdays. I think Saturdays and Sundays are more the days now for Destiny. But, if you're in those groups, the CollectorMania FFG card game group, then you'll just be able to tell people when you're coming down and hopefully have some fun. Don't forget to do all of the cool stuff like become a Collector Maniac and all of those things as well. But if you have any comments on the deck or have any questions for Seth or I, let us know in the comments and we will try to get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.